peace, brother. Hey, did you get a notification? Because I told everybody I'd come back in 2 hours. I came back and went out because it was some sketchy big party that came in. You know, there's some other people that are coming over and leaving, and I don't know. You know, I'm not big on that. So I was like, something ain't right. So I went out and sent out about like 12 messages, I think, just to see if anybody, because you know they had put a strike yesterday, and even though it was on, they might have rolled, you know, did a rolling, how you said, notification out. I don't know. So I hope everybody comes back in. I just want to get the reading. I was actually just going to do the reading and upload it, but you know, I like to be able to convey and converse if people have. So sometimes questions pop up, you know. And I was hungry, man. I couldn't wait no more. Because all I had was like a chava and some strawberries and a piece of dark chocolate. And now they ain't going to get it, especially if I'm working out. And for some reason, the cold I feel in my body wants to hang on. I'm not worried about it, but you know it's something. I didn't get what see? Yeah. That's all right. I mean, it happens. And I saw where literally on my laptop, I had 900 views on this one reading, and on here, analytics it showed 250. I was like, yeah, I don't get upset. It was bison, grass-fed bison, lavender and all that, it eats all that. Sockeye salmon, a Mediterranean salad, just leafy, no tomatoes, nothing like that, which was really good if you get rid of the seeds and the skin. We on the way, but I'll write this. And purple and red tomatoes with red onion, based on olive oil. The next best thing to Moroccan olive oil. I wish I could get a hold of some of that Moroccan olive oil. It's the best in the world. And I hit it with steak seasoning from McCormick, the organic. I think it's like 7 different. Anyway, I can make it, but I just said, man, I was being lazy. With parsley and cilantro. Dude, I probably won't even eat them all. I got to hit them chin-ups and them pull-ups, though, regardless of what's going on, you know? And I got these 3 steaks, and I got to eat these damn things. Oh, I can give them away, but I'm going to eat them. I bought them. I'm going to eat them. I got a bunch of frozen fish in the freezer. So, and I got some mussels and clams. West Side, much respect, family. I'm going to get into this reading. I just want to know, because Big Pontiac game, I don't even know why he didn't come back. I'm like, yo, I said, I'll be right back, Big Pontiac. Because nobody was getting notifications, but all these other people were popping up. And I'm like, wait, Big Pontiac got a notification? I know he'd be doing his thing too, because I saw a boy, you know what I'm saying? And he's ex-police officer and ex-military, I think, but he's real big in sports. And that's why I don't like sports, but I'll watch him. He'll keep me up to date on sports. You dig what I'm saying? But I said I was going to do this reading because I know, you can say now, whether you like it or not, but the Heaven Bearers, the Great Reset of 1834 and the Mud Flood, and this exposition, I started reading that, and people hit me in the messages. So I said, I know I got to read these two together. You know what I mean? And you don't put my background music on. I'm going to turn it down. I'm just going to get right into the reading because I am tired. And I'm really, because I want to lay up and I want, look, this, I'm going to show you the book. I got 9 of them. I'm going to show you it at around the 28th of December. No, near the end of December, I'm going to be handing out 7 of these books. And this goes in tow with, you know what? I got so many books around me, guys. My apologies, but this goes along. And I got 3 other books out of this one. There's over 20 something. So I got 3 more on the way. But the Ark at Home, in the Vedas, dude, it's Hindu. But I mean, yo, I don't care. I love a lot of books from over there. I have a ton of them. But I want stuff that's going to correlate with this. So I'm going to be handing out, I'm going to send out 7. And the first 7 after the 25th, that hit my Gmail after the 25th. Hit it now. I'm just going to put it in the garbage and tell you, nope. After the 25th, the first 7 people that hit my Gmail, I'm going to make sure it should be in my, description. First 7, you got, a free one of these coming. Now, the other ones I'm not sending you. This thing costs a pretty little penny, y'all. And yes, I was attempting to order 30. I wanted to give some to the schools and stuff, because a lot of people around here, I read to the kids and stuff, so. And you'd be surprised at a couple of teachers that says, can you go through this book and make some quick corrections? Because we were reading it, we missed it. And let me tell my teachers, they're not professors, teachers. We noticed there was some punctuation and they don't have the time. So I'll go in there and with a red pen put period, comma, quotation marks. This should be in parentheses. And it's in a lot of books. I'm like, what? They just putting these books out without no correction. I'm like, and I'm not great at the stuff, you know? I'm not great at grading, but I do know when I'm reading, I see it's like a read on, a carry on. I'm like, wait a minute, that don't even make sense. And y'all see sometimes when I'm reading, I'm like, in my head, I'm putting quotation marks, parentheses, semicolons. I'm literally visually go back and you see it, and I'm like, that sounds like that's what's supposed to be there. And it's not the great I am. It's just when you read, and when I used to read for the women in Montclair on Bloomfield Avenue at the bookstore, they used to love me to come in and read poetry in the books. And I had the knack and I just enjoyed it. Also, because of my voice, you know, when I get that, I used to read Zane for them. Yeah, propositions. We got the back room. No, I ain't the dancing bear, motherfucker. But anyway, yeah, let me go ahead and read this book today for you ladies. Which one is it, ma'am? Sister Charlene? Sure thing. All ladies? And you know, I was always at the Y at the Iron Fitness, you know, and walking in there with my 20-inch guns at the time, and, you know, glistening. Dreadlocks all down the middle of my back. You know how it is. Always clean shaven. So reading, I love it. You dig what I'm saying? And I'll read for everybody. You know, most people don't like to read. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and get into it, man. I've turned this down low enough. I like to have music. I love the background music. And just to let you know, this right here, I've shared this with you before, and there's three of them. They actually go into different loops, but this right here is Viking music, epic battle music, and it's no copyright, royalty free. I'm big on this music, and there's tons. There's other ones I can play, but I don't have my likes. All right, so we're gonna go exposing the expositions of 1851, 1950, and then we'll go into Heaven's Bearers. Okay, we'll keep it like that because even though this goes to 1915, this is around 1834, and only reason why I'm doing 1834 because we know that before what happened here, this is the mudslide and the orphans who are given a new world. Now, though it's fantasy and romance, the romance is the fantasy part. As far as the mudslide, historically, I have a ton of books that show that these books are not fiction or factual. And it's out there. It's just not taught. Why would anybody want to teach about the old world? Okay? All right, let's do this. And you would think that I read this first. That's not how it works in the movies. Well, not the movies. But anyway, let's make this a movie, y'all. I know I marked it. Here we go. I love this. Excuse me. I originally thought that this was going to, excuse me, and you remember the gentleman I said, okay, see, Harvey Mikowski, okay, make sure we always give a shout out to the individuals that write these books. I originally thought this was going to be a 1 or 2 month project on the Chicago Fair, discussing the oddities of it and making a few hypotheses, but that turned into months. Let me get comfortable, y'all. I gotta bring this thing closer. I'm at home, chilling. Let me get my leg up. Well, I'm be reading. This is how I read, y'all. If I ain't laying up in the bed, you know, looking like grandpa with the speckles down there. Anyway, let me stop all that. But that turned into months of detailed research because it was not just Chicago where this insanity happened. Similar world expositions occurred in New York, Philadelphia, Buffalo, St. Louis, and San Francisco just 9 years after their earthquake. Louisville, Omaha, Nashville, and New Orleans all built massive buildings for their regional fairs. There were fairs in Paris, London, Barcelona, Melbourne, Lima, Copenhagen, Brussels, Cambodia, just about everywhere in the world, all with magnificent, supposedly temporary structures that were torn down immediately after the fair. The fairs were concluded. Why build such an event only to destroy it. So I begin looking into it, and a lot of things do not add up. Now you remember he expressed as what he believes in the beginning. This is why I love how he writes, that they built even after the earthquake. The thing is, we're going to get into this truth. That's why I love the way he's doing this. So I began looking into it, and a lot of things do not add up. From the time frames considered for building these structures, even to the history of the exposition cities themselves, just about everything in the history of the world between 1800 and 1920 seems incredibly strange once you begin to examine it. At the center point of the strangeness appears to be these world fairs, acting like a lighthouse saying, "Look here." World expositions, in parentheses, are fairs in the United States. Started in 1851 in London and were supposed intention of nations to showcase their newfound industrial and scientific progress, cultural concepts to real social Darwinism. And we read this yesterday. I just wanted to recap on this. People today are better than those in the past. Industrial people are better than primitive people. It was the new elite that financed the expositions and who were its main attendees. World fairs inspired all the modern amusement parks and even theme parks like Disneyland. But there was so much more to these 19th century fairs than amusement. They were called expositions for a reason. 20 years ago, I was introduced to the understanding that the ancient world, Egypt, Mexico, Peru, etc., was not anything like the archaeologists were telling us. The pyramids, cut granite stones, and statues were beyond what we could construct or create today. It was inspiring to say the least. The possibility that ancient civilization was so far beyond our own terms of technology, wisdom, and understanding that I, in a sense, gave up my normal life and spent 10 years traveling, researching, and writing a 500-page book called The Power of Then. And I looked it up, y'all. While I had known much of what we call modern history, and I actually have it, so was not totally truthful. It has only been a recent discovery that it is as big of a lie as what I had examined in Egypt and Mexico. A great civilization might have existed into the 1800s, one that has been systematically eliminated from history, one that seemed to be destroyed by a powerful catalysm of warfare and technology, but it survives today in pieces that few can recognize. While all of this can be difficult for anyone to take in at times, it has been likewise very hard for me personally. And I'm going to script down because we read all the degree and all that stuff. So I'm going to go right down here and pick up where we left off yesterday. I want you to read this book critically. Do not just accept what is here. Think about it, look up source materials, and do some reading yourself. I can do my best to present why I believe the standard story cannot be close to correct, in some direction as to what could then be true, and answers in this field, in parentheses, without a time machine, are nearly impossible with great critical detail. What of it can be proven? 100% proven at that question. You will see very little. Most of it cannot even have a 20% proof rate, and it is thus demands a direct, open-minded investigation. People have to look at the past and really, really think about it. So let's go over here. And who is the, and down here he has, who is the his that the world history is referring to? And these are questions, and they have responses. Huxley's Brave New World also presents the idea that the control of the past is important to keep the system of the present running. Otherwise, this system would collapse. And that's why you see the things that are speeding up. I did a duet that I'm going to put on here just for the purpose of questioning. And I think I put one up that's relative to it for you to ponder and hopefully give some responses to it. I would really appreciate that for educational purposes. And it's open. What you call it? It's, all like copyright stuff. So definitely it is open. It's everywhere. So people do not like to think if one really thinks. One must reach conclusions, and conclusions are not always pleasant. Helen Keller, who gave a lecture at the 1904 St. Louis Exposition, and we know who Helen Keller is, Theosophical Society. History is one of the most important subjects to study and understand, and it is the most likely to be disliked. I'm not lying to y'all. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to actually insert. All right, pay attention. I'm not playing. And it is the most likely to be disliked by students, in parentheses, for it is taught in a boring manner of the memorization of dates and names, in the parentheses. The subject is currently thought of as useless, but history is incredibly important, period. Because as George Orwell reminded us in his book, 1984, he who controls the present controls the future. He who controls the past controls the present. Everything we do, are, and believe is somehow rooted in the past. Now, in parentheses, it says either our personal past of events end, or as a collective, now in parentheses again, the past we call world history, in the parentheses. It tells us who we are as a species and why we are the way we are now. Original Lone, or somebody, was it original? Who was it that spoke on the species things? Now, if you want to talk about race or creed or ethnicity, species would be more in lieu of ethnicity based upon what it means. Now, you hear those, and I have to say this, I said in the last, before I remove that, with the World Economic Forum and all that, with Charles Schwab and the little half bright Hindu brother, guy, can't call him brother, speaking about the little band you wear on your arm, and when the master of all is speaking on the radio, and if you're clapping and putting on like the kill the people over there in North Korea do, all that's a test bed. It will know if you're lying, and they'll put you in a gulag. That is just what they stated. And people still want to vote liberal and conservative and all that, and not buy guns. And listen to me, I'm gonna state this: mothers against guns or whatever they say, they don't care about us killing one another. I did get my notification, bro. Okay, thank you, Tolo. They don't care. It's about taking something so you can fight back. The worst thing about it is not being able to fight back. The majority of y'all don't even work as a team, so it wouldn't matter. And y'all not gonna they would whoop your butts in a heartbeat. Because if they come to your house and shoot you up, who in the neighborhood is going to be there to protect and fight alongside with you when they're going to make a story up? And they're going to do it around to everybody, so everybody just willfully gives up the gun, waiting and wondering who's going to be next, instead of y'all getting together, everybody getting on the block and watching and paying attention. Now they got drones that can fly down, pop you in your forehead and blow your brains out. Things that come up to your door and blow the door up. I mean, oh, okay, help me. Okay. But anyway, right? I'm just saying, look, this is suggestive, this stuff, the information's out there. All I'm doing is revisiting information out there. Let me get back to the reading. My apologies. It tells us who we are as a species and why we are the way we are now. But it is very clear on just a little study that all history is only a series of hypotheses. Facts. Very little can be verified. This is not the presentation students get today where they are told the textbook is right, memorize it, say it on the test, pass, and then never think of it again. And that's literally what college was like. And I refused. I was like, y'all people crazy. And if you do not fully examine and dig through history to find the lies, it is not that you will be condemned to repeat it, but far worse, you will be condemned to live the very existence that lie creates. Creates. Whew. It is our presented history that creates, present history that creates the current bondage, destruction, and suffering. But what if the history of this place and the expositions is something totally different? I told you, we were all united. You have to put away this theology, this idea of race, just because some people run with it as a construct to permeate their hate because they have been nurtured or raised, torn down first, and then nurtured in a lie and then consummated by those, regardless if the agency is or not, who would allow such actions. And then what about the stories of the world was destroyed because of the Negro? I've heard this said before. And so these certain Pelicans come from orphans lashed out to destroy our people, believing that we were the cause of the problem, which we weren't. It can be well, not entirely, but we defeated and we stopped something from outside and inside. And we became calm, and we became open and loving. And you see what came from that. Now we have anger and rage, unfocused. No one knows why it's there. And they're making sure that nobody can ever put that together to act upon or against it. Okay. All right. It can be quite a ride to honestly study history, but it can also be very disturbing for the foundation of the self. Remember, I always talking about self? That is directly linked to it. To uncover any lies of history will be to uncover a piece of the lie of the self. God dog it. Pepper. Of the self, excuse me. It is why the resistance for many is so strong to study these topics. You are not just taking apart the history in a book. You are taking apart yourself, one lie at a time. In my book, Falling for Truth. Oh, man. Relax. Falling for Truth. I wrote of how we use a false, in parentheses, or at least unproven, in the parentheses, point of reference for how we view ourselves in reality. Part of that point of reference is what we call history. If somebody, I didn't eat nothing spicy. What in the fuck is going on? Excuse my language. I did not. You been up being up in here, cloak, popping something in my eye. I'll tell you limb from limb. I'm serious. All right. I know you hear me and I'm like, no, I am dead serious. I will tear it from limb to limb. Part of that point of reference is what we call history. Okay? This book will look at world exhibitions held between 1850 and 1915. Seems like a simple thing, right? City holds a big fair, constructs a bunch of buildings, presents a ton of technology and progress. Millions come to the city, sort of like an Olympics of showing off. We still have expositions. Most recently, Montreal in 1967 and Vancouver in 1986. Recently, for those of us who are Canadian, food, beer, midway rides, an art gallery, a new car exhibit, a funky space-age building, voila, fair. But as you see in the photos, the fairs of 100 years ago are nothing like what they have become. The Australian World Exposition Project sponsors report in 1966 claimed that of all the events of recent history, only wars have had a more dramatic influence than world expositions upon the expression of civilization. We are not just looking at history, we will be looking at how history was being invented and presented, sent to the world's population through the fairs. I had a couple of Australians who wanted to have it out with me verbally, and I says, no, you don't know your real history. They made y'all out to be running around with a didgeridoo, which was ceremony, and not taking care of managing the buildings that you were once constructed of greatness that we all partook in. You have forgotten your face of your father, just like you have forgotten the face of your mother. And they got quiet. As I tell you, a lot of you don't know the face of your mother, as you don't know the face of your father, because you're always looking out the window of perception that they have given you to perceive only what they desire. That's why they speak as foolish as they do. What is odd is that every World Expo city prior to 1950 had a giant fire in its recent past. In Chicago's case, just 20 years prior to the exposition, then the buildings got torn down. You can sense the question that I have immediately, excuse me. If a city that has not long ago lost most of its buildings in a massive fire, why would they, San Francisco, anybody? Excuse me. Why would they immediately tear down some giant buildings that were recently built? That led me to wonder not only how fast the fairs were supposedly built, but how fast the cities themselves were built in time spans. That seemed impossible even with modern building machinery today. And I pointed that out. Bird's eye view of Chicago Exposition 1893. The image above is a Chicago Exposition of all 700 acres of it, and all suggested to have been magically built in less than 2 years. Impossible. Impossible. I will, you know what? Let's say I was to go out and hit the lottery, and I was to hit it for like 500 million. I would go out and personally purchase land just to build a quarter of that with all the appropriate. I'm talking about people that can build, not just anybody that's going to do some half-ass booty jobs. And we're talking about shapes, dynamics. We're talking about taking the seashells and creating the certain, which call it, to formulate with rice and stuff like that, to the strength of concrete. I'm talking about cutting stones with vices that only the military have. That back then it was predominantly in most of the ships. That is not in history. Look at the Antikythera, whatever it's called, right? That was part of a submarine, an ancient submarine. Let's go on. The same story is presented for the 1,200 acre exposition in St. Louis of 1904. The historical claim that for all that being built in 2 years was due to it having been all constructed out of temporary materials, which is a lie. But is that true? Did they really build all temporary buildings and in the time frame specified? I asked a number of building contractors to get their input, and they claimed very clearly that the time frames given for the building of these expositions was just not possible. And I worked in construction, I can tell you that, and I know how to read blueprints very well. These are not theorists. They construct buildings every day of their life. Even given a modern machine-equipped workforce, they were clear the time frame for the building was not possible, no matter what the material was being used. The best time frame they could give me with modern machines was 15 years. I will go into detail of exactly why they say this in upcoming chapters. I'm going to tell you, the building of light, all those windows and glass, we're talking about stained glass and colors that they so-called deconstructed and built up when there was known to be one on every continent, or some kind of way magically burnt down, like the one in England. It was immense. People walking all in upstairs. So it was, well, obviously it wasn't built of balsa wood, styrofoam, popcorn, and weak rebar. These things were reinforced concrete. That what you see now are the burnt offering, the sacrifice, the bloodlettings of these worthless embryonic children in these positions who you have never seen or heard of, who are explaining what you're going to be doing next as they run around systematically destroying everything, and you do nothing but talk. Why don't I come over there with y'all and do what? At least coming over to me, there's a plan. I said, I knew like 20 people. I said, if y'all want to get rich, we could do that in no time together. Our people are still mentally and spiritually, energy destroyed. What do you think they're doing right now? Probably listen to somebody ranting and raving, arguing, fighting, dealing with something they shouldn't really be dealing with, because they burden themselves, because they won't uplift and bring themselves to another place. We have people who believe in fictional crayon colors because they believe they benefited from it. Okay, let me be careful here. But I have to insert these things. The user response from the historian on how this was achieved is old world craftsmanship. Okay, but if you are a craftsman in your work while you produce something terrific, it should take longer, not shorter, to build. Exactly. These expositions were constructed with record speed, with incredible finish and ornamentation that would rival what is witnessed in Rome. How were they hauling the materials to the site? Digging and landscaping hundreds of acres of land, feeding and supplying the workforce. The more you study the structures, the more amazing it all becomes. It will not take long, especially with the commentary of the building contractors, to show that the story of the building of these fairs in 2 years are lies. The question becomes, what then could be the truth? All right, we're going to shut it off of there, and I'm going to mark that. I actually have 2 of these books. All right, I'm going to mark that, guys. I hope that was interesting enough for you guys. Where's my damn needle, bruh? Yo, did you take, you got my needle, F.A.? Oh, no, there you go. I want to make sure that I got my protection, you know. I want to make sure, like, what you call it over in Canada, that through the shirt, I'm getting my protection. They're not even willing to be dead serious with you guys and willing to do some real goofy stuff. All right, so now let's get into this. This is free mudfly. That's the synapses on. We allow them to tell the stories to a broken mind. That is actually there, but it's not pieced together because they have played with the puzzle and made sure that all the 4 corner pieces are not there, and anything that can help you identify as the cheek and the eye is missing on both characters. And if it's a vehicle, that what could be the radiator based on the 920 ideology is what I'm using here, and anything that could say that this is the front porch steps are not in the puzzle. So while you're scrambling around attempting to find main pieces and corners to start establishing a foundation, you have to work from the outside in to realize some of the pieces of puzzles are missing. Does that help or make sense? All right, I hope so. This is just what I do. Hope you don't mind. I'm gonna take a sip. I gotta have a little drink of something. I really felt like it was some freaking Reaper hot sauce jumped in my eye. Like what? And it was like just being dotted there. That was crazy. All right. So Heaven Bearers, The Great Reset of 1834 and the Mud Flood, Janine Helen. And that's her right there, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that's Janine Helen. Okay. And right beside it says Janine Helen is a lawyer and author living in the Natal Midlands of South Africa. She has a passion for storytelling and adventure. And when I tell you, even in Africa, there's plenty of the buildings still there. Anyone who wants to believe all the ravaged, torn places of the Rwanda and Houthis and a lot of war destroyed some old buildings there. There are places I've been over there that I think it was 12 pygmy tribes and a couple of tall individuals that were on that land who were part of the gatekeepers. When Alexander the Great was betrayed by Hannibal, and the Great Wall that they've recently been digging up, because it's always been there, that stretched all the way over to here through Louisiana. Yes, North Carolina, they've been digging it up everywhere. The Great Wall. It was not just in some fake China. It was all around the world, and it was to keep the lepers at bay. That's all. It was not meant to harm or just another until they were clean. And that's how you got the story. Lepers put away, medicinals, this, that, and ceremonies to get them as clean as possible, which is not the case because Hannibal was really in love with somebody who contracted it and the family, and he couldn't wait no longer. So we have a fictional story of gladiator Rome like fighting nonsense, but that was another betrayal, and many betrayals was the fall and beginning of wars and atrocities that would soon come after that, which has us in the state we're in right now. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this. So yesterday, when we finished off with this day before, it was hollow suddenly, but remembers herself that this is the new world and this is how things are done now. Okay. She finishes her cake. Well, remember cake and coffee. She finishes her cake while listening to Miss Wentworth talk about Mr. Wentworth. Talk about the World Fair and how her husband is financing the project. The rest was just her waffling about nothing in particular. And they get up. Did you hear what I just said? She finishes her cake while listening to Miss Wentworth talk about the World Fair and how her husband is financing the project. The rest was just her waffling about nothing, and particularly, they get up and her eyes drift towards this woman sitting next to Malcolm, and they briefly lock eyes, and Bonnie freezes and then quickly looks away. She could have sworn for a minute her eyes changed color to a luminous purple and then back to green. Bonnie feels cold and scared and exits the cafe as quickly as she can, trying to get rid of that awful feeling she felt when she locked eyes with that woman. Jane? Question mark at the end. Bonnie enters the big house that they call a mansion and walks around looking for Jane. She can't see her and gets distracted by all the effort that the builders put into every inch of it. There are details everywhere in places that she wouldn't even notice or appreciate them. Yet they are there and it bothers her. Even the door and windows have some details or finishing of some kind, and she wonders how long it took to build this place. She starts walking through the mansion and is about to enter the library when Jane interrupts her. Miss Harrington, I apologize. I was busy in the kitchen and didn't hear you. Bonnie smiles and takes off her old coat. Actually, you don't need this one anymore. How about I donate it to the foundling home nearby? She takes the coat from her and hangs it over her arm. There's a foundling home here? She asks inquisitively. She tilts her head and gives Jane a confused look. Why didn't he just marry one of those girls? She questions. Why did I have to travel so far for him? She questions. She shakes her head and is visibly irritated and upset. Jane touches her hand softly and helps her take off her gloves. I don't know, dear. Bonnie decides to ignore the thought. She is more curious about the mansion and the mud flood. How long did it take to build this mansion? Do you perhaps know? She questions. Well, she suddenly asks, actually. And no, I don't. That is something you will need to ask Malcolm about sometime. But I don't think he will know either. Your tea will be ready shortly, ma'am. She acts like she doesn't know anything. But Bonnie can see that she is lying, and Jane notices this in her eyes. Ask him about the Freemasons sometime. When he is in a good mood, it will help you understand. Leave that right there. Freemasons? She questions. I have never heard that term before. She pauses and crinkles her nose. Thank you, Jane, she says, and goes to the kitchen to drink some water and wonders about the library and what she will find inside it. She walks back towards it and opens the door, and the room is big and full of books. They start at the floor level and go all the way up to the ceiling, the books that is. And the room is huge, and she realizes there must be thousands of books in it. An out-of-place glass case in the right-hand corner of the room catches her eye, and she wants to see what it is or if it contains an object. There is something very big inside, and it has her very curious. So she walks towards it and realizes it is just a book. But the size of it must be almost a meter in height. She has never seen such a big book. How could anyone even lift and hold such a big book, she wonders. The Freemasons, perhaps, she mutters under her breath and knows she needs to ask Malcolm about them as soon as possible. This will be the good evening read for you to take to sleep and dream about. Maybe you'll find some answers, right? She gets bored and is too scared to touch any of the books and goes to the sunroom to have her tea. Stacy is still on her mind, and she wonders how she is doing, and what her husband is like. Her mind quickly drifts towards the thought of her mother, Malcolm, and that woman. She has so many questions that she wants to ask, but isn't sure if Malcolm would even know some of them. Would he even tell me? She decides then that She decides then and there, that she will ask him tonight at dinner and finishes her rose-flavored tea. I haven't had rose-flavored tea in like 30 years. Malcolm arrives home just after 6 p.m. He walks straight into the dining room and sits down clumsily. He seems grumpy, like he had a bad day, and taps his finger on the table. Bonnie quickly changes her mind about asking about the Freemasons or anything else tonight. She will wait for the right moment. Perhaps he will feel better tomorrow. He eats his food while she sips her wine slowly, and she can feel the agitation in the air. The wine makes being around him a lot more bearable, and she pours herself another glass, much to his dismay. "How was your day?" she asks politely. He doesn't even look up from his plate. "Fine," he mutters under his breath. "Fine," he mutters under his breath and keeps eating. They eat the rest of their meal in silence, and Bonnie wonders if he will ever be friendly towards her. Malcolm is a man of very few words. He is old-fashioned and has a very bad temper. She watches him carefully as she sits there at the 12-seater dining room table with the ball and claw feet. That's the kind of table I grew up eating at in the dining room. Like, damn, 12 people, like big, like seriously. Ball and claw feet. Her eyes trace over him, and for the first time, she takes a good look at her husband. He has dark, coffee brown hair, and she likes the way it covers his ears just a little, but not completely. He has thick eyebrows and a slight stubble from the day before. He is very manly, and she catches herself smiling stupidly at the sight of him. He is tall and strong, but slim built, with a very hard jaw line and intense green eyes. He is perfectly proportional, and he is perfect. He reminds her of Jerry, the butcher, that would drop off the meat at the funneling home. He was always grumpy too. It should be a Y after that. It says grump. Grump too. Malcolm's hands are clenched around his fork and knife, and he seems to be enjoying his meal. But he doesn't smile or reveal what he is thinking about and feeling. He suddenly looks up and locks eyes with her. She chokes on the piece of chicken in her mouth, and she can't pull her eyes away from him. She starts to cough. Her eyes water, and she starts to panic. She can't breathe. He gets up from his chair and walks over to her, puts his arms around her, and with his hands firmly locked together around her chest, he gives her a hard thud. The chicken loosens from her throat, and she can feel the air enter her lungs again. She needs to catch her breath and feels so stupid. He says nothing to her, but waits a moment to make sure she is okay, and then walks out of the room. She sits back down and wonders what just happened. She wiped her mouth with her napkin and walks after him. "Malcolm, wait!" she calls out to him. He ignores her, walks into his study, and slams the door shut dead in her face. She hears a loud clicking sound and realizes he just locked the door. What is wrong with this motherfucker? I mean, what's wrong with him? If his brother and sister, right? We're like, no, I'm just kidding. She goes, that's wrong. It wouldn't even be like that because that would never happen. She goes back to the library with a different kind of motivation she goes back to the library with a different kind of motivation than she had earlier, and wonders what she might find if she takes a proper look. Excuse me. What you doing? Perhaps something about Tartaria, the mud flood, and even the Freemasons. So she goes over the books one by one and goes over the conversation she had with Miss Wentworth in her head. Heaven bearers. What on earth are they? She made it sound like they aren't like her. Is Malcolm a heaven bearer, perhaps? Nothing about him seems ordinary. There are a lot of interesting books, but most are in a weird language that she doesn't recognize. She attempts to read the cover of a thick book with dark green cover and bold golden letters on the front page, but she can't. She wonders what language this is. Tartarian, perhaps? And I think we're going to leave that at that, because now we're going to start getting to some real juicy stuff. No, actually, I'm gonna read this because we're close to chapter 4. I'm gonna read this part and that'll be good because I know it's getting like, whoa. She walks back to the glass case and stares directly at the big golden book inside of it, and it hits her. This must be something important. Why else would he keep it in a glass case that is locked? The answers to all her questions must be inside it, and the thought excites her. She squints carefully at the cover, and she thinks she can make out a word that looks similar to Tartaria. Now, when I read this, the answers to all her questions must be inside it, and the thought excites her. She squints carefully at the cover, but before that, why else would he keep it in glass case? It should be in a glass case, but it's not there. I'm just letting you know, I do this on a regular. I've done it like 12 times already, and I don't know if you all saw. I had to go back and read. Yeah. What did Miss Wentworth say? The book is beautiful. It's well written. It's little things like this. What did Miss Wentworth say? The empire spanned the entire earth, and they had one language, one people, and she says out loud to herself in thought and closes her eyes, trying hard to remember exactly what she said. No religion. He is suddenly standing right behind her, and her body tenses up immediately. I didn't even hear you come in. How did you walk so quietly? She responds, and her heart starts to pound in her chest. That's why I keep telling you, we didn't have no fucking religion, people. She turns around, and you see what it's done to our people. Wow. She turns around to face him, and he slowly takes a step forward and brushes the hair from her face. He lets his hand slip down over her breast and watches her every expression. You look like this book, he asked her genuinely. No, you like this book, excuse me, not look. I'm tired. You like this book? He asked her genuinely. She turns around and takes another look at it, not realizing what he wants from her. I do, yes. I wonder what is inside. He pushes her up against the glass case, and she knows what he wants. His hands are warm and less impatient than the night before, and she feels how his fingers gently lift up her dress and move hastily over her body. And tomorrow we'll get into chapter 4, and you know where it goes to. All right. I wanted to do a little more reading in this, and you see when I said that these two, the correlations are magnificent. And though I read this one after this one, based upon the time, it illuminates the light to the exposition and what happened. And gives a little more insight, even though we're dealing with fantasy and romance. I want you to look at the words fantasy and romance. Romancing the Stone. What was that movie with Arabian Nights? Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Lawrence Arabia and all that. I want you guys to just pay attention that this is phenomenal. And then 2 more books over here. I can't wait to get to those too. That'll probably be in 2 months from now. And then after that right there, it's going to be phenomenal. And TikTok, I'm waiting for the numbers. I told them. And if not, I'll read this again for other people who have not heard this part to have a better understanding of what's going on here. Because this is just to shine a light on something that may be possible. Now, I'm very well, and this is for me, not saying for you. I am very aware that Tartaria is real. We were the Republic of Tartaria. And we were very righteous people from the earth over. And the Hada people were instructors who went around the world knowing that a fall was happening, who were handing out fighting scrolls and everything else to the next generation. And we still fell. It was known that we would, but not the way we have. And the betrayal is immense. And we were fighting an outside force. And they only need one person with everybody cooperating who are sick to do what is being done. And that's for me. Now, as far as anything else that you may pull up, I don't say that you have to believe what I am expressing. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. And you're not going to get what you're getting from me, from all these other people. You're just not going to get it. I have vetted myself in this stuff for a long time. And I feel like 20 years ago, I should have been reaching people more sternly and conveying this and prepping. And I was afraid that people might lift me up like some cult leader and follow me where the feds could come in and disband and destroy something that was based on truth. And I never was that type of person to do such a thing. So, I mean, so now I see the importance because I see the other draconian things that are going on. And it's up to y'all, because the next thing they do is stop movement. And they're going to do that, regardless of what you believe or not. And there are little knuckleheads out here who are believing they're going to get a one-up. Not smart move. I'm not going to say the words, but you know what a sickle and a reaper is, right? It'd be the last one. Trust me. I don't care about the technology or anything. If you can't see, then you can't see. Remember what I said earlier. I will keep reading, and I'm going to keep introducing certain little things sporadically. Doesn't mean that it's factual. It's for you to do the research, for you to implicate yourself and involve yourself and those around you. And you can do it very, very lovingly and say, hey, look, guys, look at what I got. Would y'all like to see this or read this? Or would you like to listen? And you can fancify things. We're saying, you ever heard of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and blah, blah, blah? Well, I've got a story for you. And then you introduce that, but not saying it's fact or fiction or anything. You say, and you sit down with your children and you start reading and allow their minds to conceptualize something within them, if it is. It's simple. Because, like Lauryn Hill say, the miseducation of the Negro is one of the most damaging things. She used to help babysit my cousin Jasmine Johanna Wright, who's a very excellent school teacher in Oranges. So it's up to you where you want to take it. When I was in the military, most people would be like, yo, Red, man, he grew up with all of them, Whitney Houston, He was a breakdancing, church, choir, he sung, blah, blah, blah. And he comes from all these. And so he's no different. I'm like, no, I am different. I got away from all of that. No paparazzi around me. I know things. And then I went and learned more things because of my background. And that's why I said, if you only had a clue, and they never got a hold of me. They were too dumb to know who I really was. And I guess because my mama wanted to kill me, I might be a burden to her life. She did. She wanted to get rid of me. She was like, he's going to be a burden because of our true history and who I am. But that's another story. That's neither here nor there. And it is what it is. So anyway, I'm glad that a number of you came in. And who was it? Rondo and Westside. Much love, guys. I wish everybody else was as chatty. But respect and continual progress and self-enlightenment. And that's all I'm for. And I know it seemed like I was a little act, but there are things that I have to give a little more consideration to. I'm not saying be considerate. There's two different meanings here. Give a little more consideration, give a little more to, you know what I mean? Because there's no way in the world they built that stuff in 2 years. All over Earth. They destroyed with purpose and with guidance, and not guidance from a man. And I told you, the firstborn betrayed the older. That's metaphoric too. But we will get into that when we reach the place. Hopefully we will, where I can share this story with you guys. Some people, I smile and I feel giddy because I've always known that people never take it serious. Didn't I just read that in the book prior to that? How people will look at things. It's hard to let go of something when you've been enslaved to something. I'm not attempting to enslave you with another lie. I'm attempting to allow you to conceptualize something relevant to another truth other than
to the pain and the ignorance you see, and yet we have people putting on a good acting show as if everything is all right. And it's well known that it's not. Anyway, love y'all. If there's ladies in here, I always tip my hat to you. For my brothers, you always know, salute. And it's nothing but love. And I'll get with y'all tomorrow. Again, I appreciate it. Share it. Some people hit me up and said they got my notification. I guess they want to be entertained by a whole lot of yelling and screaming. I don't know. Gratuity. And sometimes people don't want to walk with the old ones. They want to walk with the new ones. We're still kind of lost. And it's all right. We have choices. But the most powerful weapons is what? Exactly.